Hello and congratulations to this video course on how to boost your engagement in your WordPress site. This is video number 1, the introduction. So once you have gotten people to your website, then you need to keep them there. So if you think about it, you work really hard to do traffic generation, social media, search engine ranking. You get them to your website and they leave and you don't know why. You might have some content, but you don't know why they're not interacting. You don't know why they're not commenting and all that. So engagement is crucial because the more you can get people to engage with your website, the more they will grow closer to knowing you, to liking you, and ultimately trusting you. Once you get all this figured out and you get the engagement, then you can turn them into visitors, into subscribers, and build your email list. So that's essentially the ultimate goal here, because once you get them onto your email list, then you can build a further relationship. And then of course you can sell your products and your services. So the big question is how? How do you get them to stay on your website and get fully engaged? Well, first things first, the way we've laid this video course out is to make sure that the speed of your website is fast. Because a lot of times people overlook this factor and they go straight to the engagement plugins or they go straight to the content and they don't know why people leave. Well, if you think about the root cause of it all is because the speed of your site needs to be fast. And that's kind of a no-brainer. So attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. And that is why you need to look at that first. So once you've gotten their attention, you got to keep them engaged, which is the key. So in video number 2, we're going to talk about how you can learn how to test the spot. In video number 2, you'll learn how to test your speed of your WordPress site, because obviously before you need to speed it up, you need to know what your status is. So if you happen to test the speed of the site and it happens to be a big A+, then you're good to go. You don't have to do anything. But of course, on the other side, if you find out that it's an F or D, you need to move it up a few letters up to A or B or C, if C as the max. But generally speaking, you want to do A or B. And you'll see what I mean in just a second when we test it out in video number 2. And of course, video number 3, we'll talk about once you know your speed, how do you actually speed it up? Well, there are 2 factors here. There are plugins, and then there are the way that your web hosting company has set your server up for your WordPress site. Get more into that later on. But the general idea is that there's certain plugins out there that will help you speed it up, and then there are certain plugins out there that may help you a little bit, but don't help you as much as the other ones. So this is based on our tests, so that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Video number 4, we'll talk about how you can speed it up by analyzing your web hosting setup. So like I said, some web hosting companies have set up the servers to handle regular sites that are not WordPress, and then some are WordPress only. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. Video number 5 is when we start to talk about the hacks. So video 5, 6, and 7 will be hack 1, 2, and 3. So hack number 1 is all about this. So if you think about when somebody comes to your website after they look at the speed and everything is fast loading on all that, they think about, okay, I'm searching for something specific. They might find it, but then they're going to look more for that. So in other words, they search for XYZ, they want more of XYZ, right? So how can you make it so that it's going to be easier for them to find that information, such as related posts? What kind of plugins can you use to help you with that? So because we've tested things out over the years, we figured out which plugins work well the best in these cases. And of course, when we move on to video number 6, which is hack number 2, we'll talk about getting more people engaged in the comments area. So after they like your content, then the next step after that is they're going to want to comment and engage with you. Now, if they don't see a lot of people engaging with you, they might not actually enter anything in there. So you want to make sure that it's not just user friendly, but it's fun. So we'll show you plugins that you can use for that as well. And of course, video number 7, we'll talk about the last hack, which is hack number 3, and that is getting people to interact with your website. Now, although we're talking about interaction as a whole, this covers mainly getting pieces of areas of your website, such as polls, such as maybe ads, such as forums, such as little areas of your website that you can still get them to interact. You can actually think of these as mini transactions to get them closer to liking and knowing and trusting you. All right. So that would be the next step after the comments. So these 3 areas are actually very often overlooked, but they're very, very important to getting people closer to wanting to subscribe onto your email list. So after this, of course, we move on to video number 8. And by this point in time of the sequence and of the phase, people are now aware of you. They are aware of what you have to offer, and they want to know more. Maybe they want to buy from you, or they just want to take that relationship further. So in video number 8, we'll talk about how to turn your visitors and get them to turn into subscribers and ultimately build your email marketing list. So the email marketing list is the asset that you want to have at the end of the day. The blog is important as well, but the email marketing list is extremely important because that is what is going to help you make more money in the long run. All right. So with that said, let's move on to video number 2. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 2, and you will learn how to test the speed of your WordPress site. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so there are 2 tools that we like to use that are free. You don't have to invest any money at this stage, and they're called gtmetrix.com. So the first one is gtmetrix.com. All right, so the second one is actually offered by Google. So if you go to thinkwithgoogle.com/feature/test my site. Again, that's thinkwithgoogle.com/feature/test my site. All right, so this actually tests the mobile site limits or the mobile speed. So you want to have an idea of how fast it is based on the desktop and the mobile site. All right, so that's why we use both of these sites. So going back to this site, what I did as an example is I went to Google, I found a website that is an e-commerce store. And that's what we're going to use in this test. So obviously in your case, you're going to want to enter your WordPress site here. Okay, so I did a search and I found a website that sells scuba gear. And it's got a huge blog with tons and tons of content, with a lot of reviews, a lot of images, and all of that. Typically, anytime you have a WordPress site that has a lot of images, that in itself will slow you down. So we'll talk later on how to speed things up using those plugins and other ones as well. Now, if you go back to gtmetrix.com and you enter the URL of your website here, and you click on Test Your Site, it'll begin to analyze your website. All right, so we're going to pause this video and let it analyze it, and I'll see you when it's done. Okay, so as we can see here, GTmetrix has given this website a C, which is not horrible, but it could be improved. So if you're at a C or even a B, the goal for you is to try to get at least a few steps better. All right, so if you're a C, try to get to B or A. If you're a B, try to get to A. Or if you're an F, try to get to at least C or B. All right. So if we take a look at GT metrics and see why they say what we say, you can see that it says page speed. It's got an A on a lot of things, and it's got a B on a few things, but it's got an F on several things. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at the F. All right, so we got to click this here. It says serve scaled images. The following images are resized in HTML or CSS. Served scaled images could save a certain amount. Okay, so what they're saying is the images on the site could actually utilize a image optimization WordPress plugin. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. And if we scroll down, it says enable keep alive. If you click that, the little arrow, it says the host uses Amazon ad system. You should enable keep alive. It serves the following sources. So if you don't know what that means, you can just simply click what this means and it'll tell you what that means. So in terms of practical application, we can definitely see that this site owner has a lot of A's on everything, but they could still optimize their images. All right. So we'll actually cover a lot more detail later. So we're not going to assume that you are the same as this website. All right. So we're going to assume that you might have gotten an F, which is fine. So we're just going through here to help you realize what the tool is saying. So this one says, okay, FFF, add expires headers. So that's actually just a caching thing to deal with cache, which we'll talk about later. It says use a content delivery network. So they're not using a content delivery network such as Cloudflare or Max CDN and all of that. We'll talk about that in the next video as well. But if we just go through and take a look, you can see this one got a C. It says minified JavaScript and CSS. So a lot of this can actually be done via a caching plugin, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So if we click on waterfall, we can see what is actually loading. So when you go to a specific website, certain elements of that website load first. So what they're showing you is what elements are taking the longest amount of time to load. So if you speed these elements up, you can save a lot of time and speed things up. All right, so let's go to timings, page loads, timings, video, and history. So these are actually premium things and services that you can actually upgrade to use. But for the most part, we just use page speed, Y slowed, and waterfall. All right. Now, oftentimes, the GT metrics system will say, okay, this is a WordPress site, and we'll give you information on how to speed up a WordPress site. If you click on here, it'll tell you how to optimize a WordPress site. So if we go ahead and do that now, it gives you a step-by-step guide on how to optimize a WordPress site, but we're going to cover a lot of this in the next video. So that's what you could use. And of course, if you go to thinkwithgoogle.com, you can also enter that domain here. Okay, it says your mobile site speed is about 5.5 seconds in the United States on 4G. So 4G is fairly fast. So the rating that Google gives it is slow. And it says monthly trend slowing down. And we scroll down, we can get an idea of more detail, such as get custom fixes. It says page speed, avoid an excess DOM size. So you can actually, well, like what we talked about earlier, optimizing images. All right, so for the most part, this is what Google sees. Now, bear in mind that even though we're talking about engagement and how to speed the site up, you want to bear in mind that Google looks at this as well. And because they look at this, they are going to oftentimes base your ranking on your site speed. So the faster your site loads, the better you will get ranking, right? And the more engagement that you get, the higher ranking that you will get as well. All right. So now you know the 2 tools that you can use for free. Let's move on to the next video and talk about how to speed up your website by utilizing certain plugins. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 3, and hopefully by now you have an idea of where your website stands. So based upon that, in this video, we're going to talk about how to speed up your website by using certain and specific plugins. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that and what plugins you should use. Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, that a lot of WordPress sites tend to have a lot of images. And as you know, images have a specific size. Some of them are really big because of a high resolution, or some of them are really small. So if you have really big ones, obviously that's going to slow down your website, because when people visit your page, they have to load all of those images. Now, of course, you might be thinking, well, I have a lot of images, but they are actually very small. Even in that case, when you have a lot of images, but they're not a lot, but there's a lot on that page, even if they're like 100 kilobytes, but you have 10, that's equivalent to 1 megabyte. So it might be fast for somebody with a super fast fiber optics internet speed, but you got to remember, not everybody has that. You might have folks who are in the middle of nowhere and they have slow internet. So you have to keep in mind who is actually visiting your site. So you got a range. All right. So Imagify is what we recommend. They do have a WordPress plugin, but they are also a service that basically what it does is, if you have 100 images, it'll go through the 100 images and it'll optimize those images. And you can specify how much optimization that you want. So I'll show you that in just a minute. But it does cost a little bit of money. As you can see, it's about $5, so it's not a big deal. You don't need any of these until you start using it and you realize, okay, I need 2 gigabytes or more. So start with this one. It's $5, not a big deal. And then they have a WordPress plugin and you can install that. Now, if I go over here, which I'm going to go into a real WordPress dashboard, a real site that is actually using Imagify. And here we go. So this is already installed. And you can see it's fairly simple. Once you've installed the plugin, as you can see here, you have normal, aggressive, and ultra. What that means is normal means it'll optimize it a little bit and it will squeeze, let's say, for example, a 1 megabyte image to maybe 750 or 500 kilobytes. If you do aggressive, it's going to go smaller. But at the same time, you're going to also lose quality of that image. So a good way to detect, Imagify actually has a visual comparison. So if you click this, you can see what it looks like. So it says this is the original, this is normal, and this is aggressive. So it's very hard to see, but it's very, very small in terms of the losing the image quality. Now, what I like about it is that you can auto-optimize images on upload. So that means any future images that you upload, it's going to automatically optimize them. And you want to check to back up original images, because let's say there's a problem and there's there's a mistake. You want to have the backup of the old images so that you can revert back to them if anything were to happen. And then the EXIF data is basically information in the image. So whenever you take an image, it's not empty. There's information inside of it that says different information, such as, when it was taken, and all these other information. So you can remove that information, which of course would make your image smaller, but at the same time, you want to keep it. All right. Because Google actually looks at the images, and sometimes they'll look at the EXIF data. So that's why I recommend actually keeping it. All right, so that's pretty much the main part. You can tell it the sizes of the files that you want to optimize. So it'll take one image and it'll make a thumbnail, a medium, large, post thumbnail, and all of these here. And that's it. So that's all you have to do. And if you want to go to the media library, you will have the option to actually bulk optimize all the images that you uploaded previously. All right, so you can do that as well. You don't have to, but I highly recommend that you do. So that takes care of image optimization. The next thing I want to talk about is CDNs, or content delivery networks. The way they work is basically like this. So everyone is connected to a web host, and that web host is connected to a specific location. So if you were in, let's say, the UK, and your data center happened to be in London, if you were driving traffic to the site and somebody from, let's say, the United States were to visit your website, their computer internet would have to go all the way to UK, to London, to that data center to view it, which basically means that it's going to load slower for them, whereas it might load really fast for you. It's going to load slower. So that's why you need a CDN. There are many different types of CDNs. Some web hosting companies will actually have it included for free, but Cloudflare is one of them. And another one is called StackPath. It's actually Max CDN is now StackPath, as you can see here. All right. So these are two options that you can take. And they also, a lot of times, will have WordPress plugins that will integrate into their system. And of course, last but not least, we're going to talk about caching plugins. Caching plugins basically make it so that if somebody visits your site, you can tell it to do a cache, which means it saves the website on their computer. So that next time when they visit the website, they already have all the images and the website and all that detail on their computer. So it loads really fast. And that's the premise of WP Total Cache. We recommend Total Cache because it's been around for a while and the free version itself is quite powerful. And you don't necessarily have to upgrade to the paid version. Now, as you can see here, as I scroll down, you can actually integrate Max CDN into the WP Total Cache. All right, so you can do that. And if we go down, we can see there's general settings. And you have general mode, you have page cache. The page cache, you definitely want to enable that. And you have minify. So I don't know if you remember the GT metrics report, but it had information on minify. So as you can see, I would highly recommend that you set it to auto, and then you select minify, JSMin, and minify. Now, most of these information and these settings are by default. So what I would do is I would just tweak it to make it default and see how fast your website loads. If it improves, then great. You can always change this around. But for the most part, just stick with the default settings and you should be good to go. And that's it. This is video number 4, and you are going to learn how to speed up your site even further beyond plugins with how your web hosting is set up. All right, so let's begin. So when it comes to web hosting companies, a lot of people think, okay, as long as I have web hosting, then my WordPress site should load fast. But that's a big misconception because a lot of hosting companies, the way that they've set up their web host is not really for WordPress. And WordPress tends to utilize a lot of server resources, so you need the right setup. Now, the best analogy that I can give you is this. If you were to have heart issues and you were to go to the doctor, like a general practitioner, then he might look at you and say, okay, well, let's just run a few tests. And he's not really going to know what to look for, right? A few months, he still doesn't know what you have. So then he refers you to a cardiologist. And then the cardiologist looks at you and he says right away, okay, this is what you have. All right. So that's the analogy, is that in this case for WordPress, web hosting companies that specialize only in WordPress will have set things up so that WordPress will run fast. So we highly recommend two web hosting companies. The first one is wpxhosting.com. It's not expensive at all. In fact, it's actually a lot cheaper than a lot of web hosting companies. Now, the nice thing about WPX hosting is if you have any problems with WordPress, like it's acting up or you're having error messages or anything like that, or you want to, SSL certificate installed, their support team is the best. And they will actually help you with anything related to WordPress. So that's what we notice with WPX hosting. And on top of that is, if you were to host with a different company that is not specialized in WordPress, then you would have to purchase a CDN, which is like Cloudflare. And you would have to pay anywhere from $10 to $30 per month just to use Cloudflare on top of your web hosting company. With WPX hosting, they actually have their own content delivery network. So once you pay them, that's it. You get free SSL certificates. They're super easy to install. And you also get backups, daily backups, which you can go to the calendar for the past 30 days and say, I want to revert back to this day, and you just click a button and that's it. Most web hosting companies have it set up so you can't really do that. Especially if you're using cPanel, you can back it up, but it doesn't back up automatically for you. So you can go into the cPanel wizard, into the backup generator, and click backup. But with WPX hosting, it backs it up every single day. So that's a nice feature that they provide. The next web hosting company that we recommend is WP Engine, and that's wpengine.com. They were actually one of the originals web hosting companies, but if you go to the pricing, you might think, oh, that's really expensive. But the reality is that because WordPress sites, as you grow them bigger and bigger, the more plugins that you install, what happens is they get slowed down. In terms of migration, if you have any problems migrating, both sites should actually migrate it for you. We know that WPX hosting does, and they actually will go in, they will migrate all your data and all that. So in terms of customer support, they are phenomenal. WP Engine is as well. All right, that's it. Okay, so welcome back. This is video number 5 and the first hack. And like I said in the intro, if you really think about the process of when somebody arrives at your website, what they think, and the process of that is the next thing after they land on your website is, all right, so now I see an article about a certain topic. Let's say that topic is all about cars, like how to fix cars. Maybe it's specifically about how to fix a battery or replace a battery. So if they come to your site and they get the content that they need, and you've got all sorts of content on battery replacement, but it's all scattered about, then what's going to happen is they're going to look for that content, but if they can't find it, they're going to leave. So the goal here is to present them with the content that they're looking for. So if they're looking at the how to replace a battery, you could have other related posts like how to clean the parts in your car that hold the battery and all of that. So what you need to do here is to use certain plugins that will allow you to show related posts. There are other things like auto suggestions. So if they do a search on your website and they're able to see, okay, there are more than one piece of content on this specific topic, that's great. I'm going to stay longer. All right. So you see what I mean? That is how you can get them to stay longer. And once they go through your content, then of course you can go to the next step. All right. So let's talk about plugins that you can use. Now, before we discuss what plugins you should use in terms of setting up the related post functionality, you want to make sure that whenever you choose a plugin, to bear in mind that you should choose one that actually does not slow your site down. A lot of people make this mistake of installing tons of WordPress plugins, and then some of them will actually slow your WordPress site down. In fact, you might test it out. You could test it out and disable some plugins, and you'll find that it'll actually speed up your website. So these three that we're about to recommend actually don't drag your whole site down. The first one is called Jetpack, and this is actually created by Automatic, which is the parent company of WordPress. So what's nice about Jetpack and Automatic is they constantly come out with updates. So you don't have to worry, is this plugin updated or not? And that's something that you have to be aware of, because some plugins that you install now will stop working or will have open security holes, or the company just stops. And because of that, they don't keep up to date with the new WordPress updates. So Jetpack is a great plugin. It doesn't just do related posts, it does a lot more than just that. In fact, as you can see here, it speeds up your website, it protects you from brute force attacks, you can back up your entire site. So not only does it do the related posts, but it also does a lot more than that. The next plugin is called Related Posts for WordPress. And if you simply go to Google and you type in this, Related Posts for WordPress, and you're looking for this with a cat, you could also go to wordpress.org/plugins/related-post-for-WP. But the easiest way, simply just go to Google and do that. All right. Now, this is focused on purely related posts. So like Jetpack, it has all these other features, but you may not need that, right? And the more features that you have, the slower your site. So you have to bear in mind that choose a plugin that only solves a very specific thing. All right. So this one's really good. The next one is called Similar Posts. And to get here, you can go to wordpress.org/plugins/similar-posts. So the URL is a lot easier to get to, or you can simply Google this similar post, the WordPress plugin, and you'll get this. Now, the nice thing is this plugin is very much updated a lot, which is a good sign, and it also specializes in related posts. So it really comes down to what your needs are. We can't really say which one's better out of these three, but if you only want to do related posts, then I would stick with this one or this one. But if you wanted to do related posts and you wanted to do all these other features as well, go with Jetpack. All right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, another way of doing this is utilizing the auto suggestions feature. The way this works is somebody types in the search box on your website, and then they see a drop-down menu. So if you enter something and you have like 10 different posts that are related to that tag, then you can show it all there. And this is really good for somebody who doesn't really want to take time. They just want to search and see if you have it or not. The one that we recommend in terms of WordPress plugins is called Ajax Search Lite. You can go to wordpress.org/plugins/ajax-search-lite. Okay, so now you understand how to show related posts images and other media to the person so that they are interested in what you have to offer. You're gaining their trust because they're staying on your website longer. How can we get them to go from the content all the way down to the comments section and interact with you? And that's what we're going to talk about in video number 6, which is hack number 2. Okay, so the first WordPress plugin that we recommend is called Replyable. That's REPLYABLE.com. Now, the reason why we recommend this is because if you've ever used the default section of the WordPress comment section, you'll realize that it's not as user-friendly. And here's what I mean by that. If you leave a comment, you're never going to know if somebody replied to that comment unless you come back to that page later on. But if you come back to that page, as you can imagine, that's kind of frustrating of an experience. Well, what's nice about Replyable is this. You can actually subscribe to people's comments. So if you make a comment, you can subscribe. So whenever somebody responds to your comment, you'll be notified. And that is why we recommend Replyable, because it increases that engagement factor. Plus, on top of that, when you create a comment and you get somebody to respond to your comment, you can actually respond to that WordPress blog via your email. So instead of having to go back to the WordPress site, you can actually do all of that via your email. So in other words, it solves that problem in terms of getting people to come back and engaging with you. So that's the first plugin that we recommend in terms of comments. The second one that we recommend is called Disqus Comment System. That is DISQUS Comment System. The best way, honestly, to get here is to simply go to google.com, type this in with the WordPress plugin keyword next to it, or WP plugin, and you'll find this page. Now, Disqus is actually commonly used, and it's a lot more dynamic. The way it's different from other WordPress plugins is that it allows your visitors to come and comment, but they can also sign in via other social media sites like Facebook and other logins. So instead of having to create, a username and password in your WordPress system, they can simply use one of their other social media accounts. Now, on top of that, it looks really beautiful in terms of the setup of the comment side, and it also supports what we call threaded comments. So as you can imagine, someone makes a comment, somebody replies to them, and then somebody replies to that second person. So you can't really do this with the default settings of WordPress. So if you respond to, let's say, the third person, there's going to create a little bit of interaction between those two people, right? And then somebody might come along and then respond to that third thread. So what this does is it creates more interaction, more engagement, and all that. So that's why we recommend these two WordPress plugins. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 7, which is hack number 3. All right, so in the previous video, we talked about how to get them to engage with you via the comments and get more comments. Now, from that point, you've got them hooked and they really like your website, but you want to get them to continue to interact with your site. So by this point, they are what we call warm traffic. They know what you have to offer, they've consumed some of your content, and they like you, all right? So at this point, how do you get them further interacting with your site? Maybe how can you get them to give you feedback on how to improve? And not just that, or what things that they like, or what do they want to see in your site in terms of content and other things like that. So in this particular video, we're going to cover that, such as polls, such as forums, and all of these little aspects will help you not only engage with them, but it'll also help you get feedback from them, which is a gold mine. Once you start getting suggestions and all that, you can sort of get an idea of the customer itself and how you can better serve them. The better you can serve them, the more you can create products and services surrounding that feedback, and you'll start being able to sell to them. And that's where the money is. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So before we talk about different plugins that we recommend, I want to say that it's a good idea to have a plan of action, meaning have an idea of what you want to do. Do you want polls for people to interact? Do you want forums? What kind of forums do you want? What do you want the forums to do? Do you want surveys? What do you want to get out of the survey? Or is it going to be a quiz? What kind of fun quizzes can you offer your visitors in pertaining to the content that you're offering? And based on that information, then and only then can you and should you really go out and buy a WordPress plugin. Now, in terms of forums, there are several out there. The one that we recommend is gravityforums.com, simply because they have a lot of features beyond just gathering data. As you can see here, you have like conditional logic, so you could do quizzes with this too. Now, one thing I want to say is the pricing isn't as bad in the beginning if you have one site, but if you scroll down, so I want to be transparent here, most of them and all of them usually integrate into some sort of autoresponder or email system, which is great. But if you want to take it to the next level, see, you can connect it to Dropbox, you can connect it to PayPal and all that. But on Gravity Forums, in order to get to the next level, it's about $159 because the basic plan does not contain any of that. And if you want to connect to other payment processors, it's about $259 just to do this. All right. And you might not even have to do any of this. If you don't have to do any of this, just stick with the basic plan. But I also wanted to offer you another additional WordPress plugin that is highly recommended, which is WP Forums. So that's WPForums.com. And they offer a ton of features. All right. If you go to their pricing, and don't look particularly at the domain licenses yet, just look at the features. So for about $199, it's a lot cheaper, right? So instead of $259, it's $199 to get the full payment integration. But like I said, most of you are not going to need that. That's why I say make sure to plan ahead of time first and then go get the plugins. A lot of people make the mistake of getting the plugins and thinking, oh, this is cool, or this is neat, let's add this. But what ends up happening is you will get overwhelmed and you'll start adding all of these features that you may not really need. So think of the plan, think of the strategy first, and then go get the WordPress plugin. All right. So that is in terms of forums. Now, if you want to create polls or ratings or anything else, then we recommend a plugin that is actually created by Automatic, which is the parent company of WordPress. So it's a pretty much guaranteed that this will stay up to date. But it's called Crowd Signal Poll and Ratings. And you can easily get here by going to wordpress.org/plugins/polldaddy right here. And that's a really good one. Now, if you want to take it further and you want to do like quizzes and you just want one plugin that does everything, then this one here, which is called Opinion Stage, And if you simply go to this URL here, you can pause the video and enter that in, or just go to Opinion Stage, just type in Opinion Stage WordPress plugin, and you should get this. Now, this plugin is really cool because it integrates polls, surveys, forums, and quizzes all together. So, like I said, if you feel like your site's slowing down, you can install this one plugin, and that's it. You can cover all of your bases all at one time. All right, so hopefully that gives you different options that you can go towards. Make sure you, like I said, plan ahead, choose the plugins that are right for you, and you should be good to go. All right, so in the next video, we're going to talk about how to build your list. So after you have gotten all this engagement, how do you get them on to your email marketing list? Hello and welcome to video number 8. Now let's take up all the information that we have taught you about engagement. And now the step is, okay, so they really like you and they want to know more about you. So in this step, you're going to learn how to get them from engaged visitors to turn into subscribers. And that way you can get them onto your email list and build a relationship with them. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Now, before we talk about WordPress plugins and what you should use, I would highly recommend you figure out what email autoresponder system you're going to use. Now, if you already have an email autoresponder system, great. The most popular ones are getresponse.com, and then we have aweber.com, and we have convertkit.com. Now, there are many others, but these are the ones that we highly recommend. So once you figured out what email autoresponder service that you use, then you can look into WordPress plugins, because bear in mind that not all WordPress plugins integrate into certain autoresponder systems. So once you found a compatible one, then it's good to go. Now, in terms of how you can get them onto your email list, if you followed through the video course, up until now, your audience has engaged with you long enough to the point that they will want to know you more. So what you could do is a number of things. You could either offer a lead magnet in exchange for their email address, which is the most common thing to do, or you can create quizzes. Now, we briefly talked about quizzes in the previous video, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth. The reason why quizzes work so well is because, especially if you create like a personality quiz or a really fun quiz, or if you go on Facebook, for example, and I'm sure you've seen these types of quizzes, but if you go on Facebook, you may have seen things like find out who you are kind of thing. So if you can think of something related to that, where you can create something fun on your site, that's actually a really good way to get people to interact and sign up on your email list. So if you do that, there's a plugin that we actually recommend. It's called Interact, and you have to go to tryinteract.com. It says you can make quizzes to generate leads for your business. What's nice is you can create these picture quizzes. All right. So one thing that we found over the years and tested was that quizzes, generally you want to stick with image quizzes because a lot of people are visually stimulated out there. But at the same time, you could use like textual quizzes if you want to, but you want to make it fun, and fun usually points to visual. So this is why we recommend Interact. They have a lot of other features inside of it. But if you go to Interact's integrations and you scroll down, you can see that it's already integrated with ConvertKit. Entreport's good as well. ActiveCampaign's good. And if we scroll down, we can see Aweber and GetResponse. And they're integrated with a ton of other email marketing systems and analytics, Facebook ads. and more. All right. So you want to see that. If you go to a WordPress plugin, you find out that it doesn't integrate into your email autoresponder system, you wouldn't know that if you didn't know what email autoresponder that you use. So for those of you who already know what it is, great. If for those of you who don't know, you just need to pick one. Now, in my opinion, ConvertKit is actually really, really good because if we were to look at all three of these, I wouldn't go with Aweber. Aweber is okay, but I would go with ConvertKit because you can do a lot more with ConvertKit. You can integrate it with a lot of other third-party systems. You can do a lot of automation. You can have rules, tags, and a lot more. And it's actually very easy to set up with ConvertKit. All right. Now, if you do use Interact, you're going to need to have the WordPress plugin, which is free. If you go to wordpress.org/plugins/interact-quiz-embed, you'll find the Interact Quiz WordPress plugin. So you'll need to install this, and then what will happen is you'll need to connect it to your account here, and then you can create the quizzes and then populate it and put it on your WordPress site. All right. So like I said, you can choose any other quiz builders, but that's what we recommend is to get them from fun to email list. Now, you could offer a lead magnet, like I said earlier. If you do that, you'll want to use something like a lead page generator. In this case, we would recommend something like ClickFunnels. And this here is ClickFunnels. It's clickfunnels.com. And we like ClickFunnels because it's super easy to create opt-in pages and integrate it into your WordPress site. And it also integrates into a lot of email autoresponder systems like the ones that I just showed you. So this is a tool that you can use. You don't have to, but that's an option if you use a lead magnet, which is a freebie. So it could be a free report, free video, free audio, or something intangible or a media form that you can give someone.